Fred Astaire spent his entire life looking flawless on screen. Every move, every smile, every bow tie seemed to belong to a man who had mastered perfection. But when a forgotten photograph from 1950 resurfaced online in 2025, everything changed. Fans who always saw him as graceful and untouchable were heartbroken. Because in that picture, Fred looked drained, broken, and fragile. But what truly shocked everyone wasn't just the image. It was the message scribbled on the back in pencil. Words that revealed the deep pain he'd kept hidden behind his effortless charm. They exposed the truth of a man who lived for perfection, but suffered silently under its weight. Fred Astaire, born Frederick Austerlitz on May 10, 1899 in Omaha, Nebraska, came from humble beginnings. His father, Fritz, was an Austrian immigrant working as a beer salesman, and his mother, Anne, gave piano lessons just to help them survive. When little Fred was only 3 years old, his mother saw him mimicking the dance steps of his older sister, Adele. She believed the stage could rescue them from poverty, and from that moment on, their lives would never be ordinary. By the time Fred was 4, he was dancing constantly, following Adele to lessons at the Chambers Dance Academy. And by 7, they were performing vaudeville shows that paid more than most adults earned. Their act, the Astaires, toured non-stop across the Midwest, sometimes 20 shows a week. Fred practiced 8 hours a day, pushing himself to exhaustion before he even turned 10. He wanted perfection, and even when stage fright froze him in front of a crowd in 1909, forcing his mother to cover for him by saying he was sick, Fred turned that humiliation into motivation. He became obsessed with control, determined to never fail again. By the time he was a teenager, he and Adele were famous. Their chemistry on stage was electric. Audiences adored them. But when Adele fell in love with Lord Charles Cavendish, her heart began to pull her away from show business. Fred begged her to stay, but in 1932, she left the stage forever to marry her English aristocrat, leaving her brother heartbroken and alone. He was 32, standing on an empty stage, unsure who he was without her. Desperate for a new beginning, Fred turned to Hollywood. But the first studio report about him was brutal. It read, "Balding, can't act, dances a little." It was humiliating, yet Fred refused to quit. When audiences saw him in Flying Down to Rio, they were mesmerized. Overnight, he became a star. But behind the smiles were endless takes, aching feet and sleepless nights on that same film. Fred forced one dance to be filmed 105 times until it was perfect. Every mistake tormented him, and every critic's word felt personal. By the mid-1930s, Fred and Ginger Rogers had become Hollywood's golden duo. Their chemistry was unmatched, but it came at a cost. Ginger once danced until her feet bled, and still, Fred demanded more takes. He was driven by fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of not being good enough. And that obsession carried through every film. Even when studios whispered that he was difficult, Fred's precision made him a legend. When he danced on the walls in Royal Wedding in 1951, people called it magic, but few knew how dangerous it really was. The rotating set cost $75,000 and could have crushed him if a step was mistimed. Yet he did it without a harness, smiling the whole time, as if gravity had never applied to him. But perfection came with pain in the late 1950s. Arthritis began attacking his hips, and during live TV shows, he secretly took painkillers just to perform. There were moments when the cameras caught him rubbing his side, trying to hide the agony beneath a polite grin. Even his marriage to Phyllis Potter, which the public saw as perfect, was full of heartbreak. She suffered a miscarriage in 1941, and when she died of lung cancer in 1954, Fred fell apart one night in 1955. Police found him drunk behind the wheel on Wilshire Boulevard. The arrest was buried by MGM to protect his image, but it showed how deeply he was unraveling years later at 81. He shocked the world again by marrying Robin Smith, a woman 46 years younger. Headlines mocked him, calling it a marriage of convenience. But Fred said, "I'm marrying companionship, not a nurse or a gold digger." And he was right. Robin stayed with him until he passed in 1987, never asking for more than the modest trust he left her. As for his son, Fred Jr., their relationship had been scarred by distance. The boy once wrote letters he never sent, saying, "The only steps I know are the ones you're never here to climb with me." Those letters were found years later in storage, revealing a father who had sacrificed everything for his art. Even love, even family. Fred Astaire's legacy wasn't just built on dance. It was built on pain, fear, and discipline that few could imagine. From funding schools for underprivileged dancers to quietly paying off debts just to protect others' dreams. He gave more than anyone knew. Yet the world only saw the man in tuxedo and tails, smiling as if life were easy, when that old photograph resurfaced in 2025, showing him exhausted during royal wedding rehearsals. Fans finally saw the truth. He had written on the back, "2 sleepless nights, Jane's still perfect. I'm off by half a beat. Smile, Freddie, smile. Can't." Those words weren't just notes. They were confessions, proof that even the man who seemed untouchable was human, fragile and endlessly chasing perfection. That haunting image went viral, touching millions who suddenly realized that behind the elegance was a man who had given everything, every breath, every step, every ounce of his soul to dance. And perhaps that's what made him timeless. So if you were moved by the hidden story of Fred Astaire, don't forget to subscribe to Hollywood Bulletin and press the bell icon, because we'll keep uncovering the untold truths behind the legends you thought you knew.